Right about now, we welcome you to the world of sports. And our sports anchor is just standing by right here in the studio with us. Good morning, Samson.
Good morning.
How are you, Samson?
I'm all right.
You know why we all
three of us.
Like
that's good. More of a reunion, you know.
Reunion, I guess. All right, so what's happening in the world of sports, right?
So much, but we'll have to, restrict it to just two sports due to time constraints. And then we'll start with the NBA, definitely talking about the 75th anniversary. We had the Los Angeles Lakers defeating the Utah Jazz by 106 to 101 points at the wee hours of today, and it was LeBron James who exploded for 33 points as he led the Lakers to a convincing win over the Jazz, scoring 15 of his 33 points in the fourth quarter as the Lakers staged a comeback. Although the win was a sore one for them as they lost Anthony Davis to an ankle injury. Good news for the Lakers, though, is that the results are back and it's negative, so it's not a sprained ankle ligaments that would have ruled Anthony Davis out for so long. But Davis will be definitely treated during the All-Star weekend, which is this weekend, and there's so much to look forward to when it comes to basketball, especially for the All-Star weekend. LeBron James, 33 points, I said earlier. Anthony Davis played 17 minutes, had 17 points before he picked up the injury. Russell Westbrook had 17 points as well, and Malik Monk had 16 points for the Lakers. So we'll move away from there now to the world of football, where we'll talk about the UEFA Champions League, and that's what, the biggest European club competition is. And the big one has to be Liverpool against Inter Milan yesterday, with Liverpool winning by 2-0. Mohamed Salah, I beg your pardon, as well as Roberto Firmino getting the goals for Liverpool as they ran out 2-0 winners at the Giuseppe Meazza Stadium in Italy against Inter Milan, and that puts them in firm control for a place in the quarterfinal against an unknown opponent yet. But there's still a return leg at Anfield, which will take place on the 9th of March. But right now, it's all about Liverpool having cruise control on the tie itself, and you have to give kudos to Virgil van Dijk as well as Ibrahima Konate, the defensive pairing in terms of centre-back for Liverpool, who were outstanding in the match itself. And it was a reunion too for Liverpool, talking about Mane, Salah and Firmino being on the pitch at the same time since the African Cup of Nations. And for Liverpool, the sore taste of this victory is that Diogo Jota, who has scored 17 goals all season, picked up an injury and had to leave at halftime. The diagnosis is yet to come in terms of how long it will be sidelined, but it's Liverpool in firm control at this time.
Right, Professor, you have a reaction to the sport news. Okay,
I was going to ask him, well, Liverpool, who do you think Liverpool will be playing against?
And there will be another draw that will be made to get the quarterfinal pairings.
Yes, I know. Like, what do you think? Who do you think will make that?
It's difficult to tell now. There's the possibility, it could be Man City, because it's the round of 16, ties that you can't have two teams from the same country play each other. But going into the quarterfinals, you could have, teams from the same country play each other. So you could have City against, Liverpool. You could have Liverpool against PSG. It depends. This is still the first leg. Although for City, the 5-0 win, against Sporting Lisbon has all but assured them a place in the quarterfinals. Liverpool as well. It's difficult to say Inter Milan, score 3 goals at Anfield. So I think all in all, Liverpool, Man City are as good as into the quarterfinals already. We'll see other teams that progress. Sometimes are still open. PSG ran out 1-0 winners over Real Madrid. That can be turned, on its head at the return leg when it goes to Santiago Bernabeu Stadium. So for City and Liverpool, they've recorded impressive wins that have all but assured them of a place in the quarterfinals.
All right, that's interesting. I think we'll call it a wrap on this particular segment.
All right. So now we are going to go straight into the conversation segment, but I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag. We are going on a very, very short time out. We'll be back for the conversation segment. Please stay with us.
Most people don't understand the magic of a perfect skin, the allure of a well-pampered skin. We bounce from skincare products to skincare products, from spa to spa. Looking for that ideal solution. I found the solution. and it's Blemiville Skincare and Spa. My name is Neil, and I'm proud to be a part of the Blemiville family.
The pastor of Deeper Life Church reportedly cancels the wedding of a couple over suspicion of consummation after the groom kissed the bride 3 days to their wedding. According to the narration of an anonymous writer, the couple who have been traditionally bonded were refused marriage after the groom admitted to kissing his wife-to-be during a sleepover a few days to their wedding day. Now, despite numerous pleas, the pastor reportedly terminated the union on the day of their wedding. Now, this has generated a lot of reaction on social media. Should the intending couple had lied and proceeded with the wedding, or is kissing before church wedding prohibited? Now, some of the persons said ordinary kiss. Oh, well, it's not left for me to decide if it's an ordinary kiss, because I have something and also have perpetual, or rather I did something and I did perpetual. I'm wondering what happened.
It's fine.
Okay, I have something and I have perpetual. So, the word ordinary kiss, what do you think? Look at it from, okay, before I ask you this question, I know you stand here now, but I want to give you the benefit of that. Now,
how do you know my stand?
I know you now. Don't we all know you in this office? You know what you like, you know what you can do. But now, look at it from the angle.
You hear from my lawyers.
What lawyers?
Defamation of character.
Excuse you. Look at it from this angle now. We have couple who have gone to the church, knowing fully well, knowing the doctrines of the church. And have agreed to these doctrines. They were not cajoled. I do not think, the story didn't say they were cajoled to agree to the doctrines. They are members of this particular denomination. They know, we all know this denomination. They agreed to get married there, and they know the doctrines. Probably they agreed to it, and I'm sure with the agreement, it may be stated that you could have your wedding terminated if you do certain things.
Certain boundaries.
Yeah, and then they agreed, and now they still cross the boundaries. And I know it's enough for people to say, this is not me trying to be the judge for them now. People trying to say, I know people could say, you're traditionally hitched already, so why? But then these people agree to it. So let's look at it from these two angles. What do you think?
Well, the story itself is not, you know, binding in the sense that this is just the perspective of the couple that we've heard. Now, you also have to understand that from the narrative, it's presumptuous. The narrative said that the pastor presumed that they had consummated the relationship, and that's why it terminated. Now, no, you have to look at what the doctrine of the church says. Is it the issue of a presumption? Can the pastor just simply assume, oh, because you guys kissed, it means you must have had something to do in terms of consummating the relationship, hence I terminate it? If there are no factual evidences regards the consummation of that relationship, then the pastor simply acted on a presumptuous note. That's a different thing than something that is factual. If the couple had admitted that, oh, okay, we indeed consummated the relationship, which negates the church's doctrine, then you can understand where the pastor is coming from.
But if not consummation.
I'm coming there, but if the pastor is presuming that they consummated because they kissed, it doesn't add up. Then it now begs the question, is it a crime? Is it prohibited to kiss during courtship? Again, you would have to rely on the doctrine of that church or that denomination, as it were. If the doctrine of the denomination spells it out explicitly that you cannot kiss during courtship, then the pastor is within the doctrinal rights to cancel it. But if it is not spelled out anywhere within the church doctrine, then the pastor has no right to do that. Because again, you said while introducing that the couple, though they've been traditionally, married, that they agreed to marry in that church and they know the doctrines of the church because they're members of that church. So it's one thing for the intending couple to, understand the doctrines of the church and agree to it. It's another thing regards what the doctrine spells out explicitly. So the question is, does this doctrine say do not kiss during courtship? If you do, your marriage will be terminated or your wedding will be cancelled. If the doctrine does not spell that out, then the pastor went out of bounds.
Actually, I think I totally agree with him, because when I heard that story, I was also my first reaction was, okay, if you're a member of that church, you know the rules, you know what's binding, and so you're expected to keep it. And for me, I totally believe that when it comes to marriage, I mean, you can be traditionally married and probably you go to court. I mean, you don't have to do all three.
All three.
So, but if you choose to do all three, I mean, it's your choice. And you choosing to do all three means that you want to abide by whatever rule
that dictates
each of this
nominations or the wedding.
Exactly, you have to abide by their rules. And so, like I said, my initial reaction was, okay, what does the church say? And now we do not even know if the church actually frowns at kissing. But looking at deeper life, I want to almost conclude that there is a possibility the church frowns at it. But like you said,
at kissing during courtship.
I do not. I said there is a possibility.
I was just asking too.
There is a possibility, but I really wish I'm a member of that church. I would have really loved to know.
Are you wishing you're a member, or you just want to find out?
I want to find out really if kissing to them is
lustful.
Oh yeah, okay. I don't know what to conclude, just like Perpetua had rightly said, but I have a couple of people who are members of Deeper Life Church, and they will tell you that it's part,
it's
according to what they say. I do not know what I was told. Like, disclaimer, I was told this. Now they'll tell you that it is part. It's not. You shouldn't even kiss. You shouldn't be too close to. In doing courtship, like that's body contact, not close, even as much as having to hug, full hug. So I think all of those things. That's what
so I was. The side hug.
Well, I don't know if the side hug applies so, but
well,
okay.
You have to understand that different denominations are guided by different doctrines, and you know, it's the vision that whoever the leader or founder of the denomination is got from God and all of that, and we have to respect that. That's no problem. Again, if these things are not spelled out, there's the place of something being implicit. There's the place of being explicit. If the clause, let me put it that way, of kissing being unethical, criminal, unspiritual, whatever adjective you want to use to qualify it, within the church doctrine or this particular denomination's doctrine is explicit, then that's understandable. But if it's wrapped up in some sort of implicit you know, meanings whereby you have to interpret several times
based on who you are,
and what have you, context and all, then it is ridiculous, and there would always be arguments for and against in that regard. That's why it's often said that when clauses or doctrines are spelled out in that regard, especially for, you know, guidelines or regulations for intending couples to abide by ahead of their wedding day, it has to be explicit.
But then, sorry, it's Perpetual. It's looking at it from another angle. You know, I like to see not just one part. I like to see not two sides to a coin.
Yeah,
many sides of the coin. Because looking at it from another angle, looking at the aside church doctrines now, that's a place of I don't know if I would call it sympathy or empathy. I'm trying a place from the part of the pastor and the church in itself for members who are. Obviously, for them to want to be wed in the church, that means they have been members and they are committed members of that church. And looking at it from the money spent, from the preparation spent.